So, good morning or good evening, or good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. Talent Finders would like to welcome founder of American Paragons Foundation, Team USA athlete, and supporting athletes beyond competition, Shane Fisher. So, welcome, Shane.
Hey, how's it going, Karen?
So Shane, I'd like to congratulate you on all your achievements. So can you share with us how your Olympian journey and dream started, and what led you to starting and founding American Paragons Foundation?
Well, it really started in the year 2000, I would say, at the Sydney Games. I was watching the games with my grandma. We always had a tradition where we would watch the games together. We would record like every single thing in the games. And I saw the opening ceremonies and during the Parade of Nations, which is like everybody's favorite part of the opening ceremonies. I was sitting there going, "Oh, these people are superheroes. Like, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen in my entire life." And then I just went, "That's it. That's what I'm doing." And then I was 4 years old, and that was basically it. I just went, "This is it." Never really changed my mind, which is,
That's
most of the time people are,
amazing.
yeah,
That's
4
like
years
real
old and saying you're gonna
mindset.
be, yeah, an astronaut or you're gonna be a magician or something like that. And then you get older, you go, "Oh, maybe not. I'm not gonna do that." I said, "I'm gonna do this ridiculous, insane thing." And then I went, "Yep." And I never changed my mind at all.
Well, that's great, amazing. So, your dream and goal was always to participate in the Olympic Games. So, can you share with us what made you initially choose tennis out of all the sports? And what was this process for you? And when did you decide to switch?
So I played a lot of different sports growing up. I played football and baseball. I swam, basketball, all kinds of stuff. And I never really thought much about tennis in general. But then one year when I was 11 years old, because I'm also insane, as you're going to learn very quickly in this podcast. I started running like 5, 6 miles a day up this gigantic hill. I'd go up and down this huge hill because I wanted to be the running back on the football team.
Oh,
And I had
wow.
these stress fractures in both of my legs because, believe it or not, an 11-year-old isn't supposed to do stuff like that because they're still growing and everything.
Yeah.
And I was told I wasn't allowed to play any of those traditional sports for a couple of years. My grandma took me out to play tennis after about 6 months because I was just on bed rest, like, I couldn't really do anything, and I just wanted to spite the doctor. Like, the doctor didn't explicitly say I couldn't play tennis, so I said, "Okay, I'm gonna go out and play tennis with my grandma," and then I went, "Oh, this is really fun," and I visited a local tennis club, and it was just like fate because the tennis pro there, who I just got introduced to, one of my classmates, had gone to the Olympics twice, I believe, for tennis during the '70s and '80s when it was exhibition. And he had these like, memorabilia from the Olympics and all of these really cool things. And I took one look at that and I went, all right, this is what I do now because this guy's gone. Like, and this is what I want to be. And I was also getting at that point to the age where I was realizing, like American football is not in the Olympics. Like these other sports are not in the Olympics and tennis is.
Yes.
So that was really just a lot of luck, honestly. I got hurt, got forced to play this game, kind of like, and then just met the person who had gone to the Olympics. I think if I'd have met a coach that hadn't been to the Olympics, I don't know if the thought would have crossed my mind as
Yeah.
strongly,
Yeah.
but it was just the perfect storm.
So a big part of your commitment when embarking on such a big dream and vision, is mindset, and a huge amount of discipline. So where do you believe that strength and discipline and consistency, drive and determination came from? And what are some of the mindset tools you applied back then and now?
Ooh,
Mhm.
this is a tough one. This is a tough one because some part of me knows that you can improve your mindset and you can get stronger and you can learn these things and you can do all these things. But I also think there are certain people that are just out of their gourd and
Mm.
just completely insane and they were just kind of like born that way. Um, I think I was a little bit out of my mind since day one, honestly. Like I don't know exactly what makes me the way that I am, but I am. Because like for example, like going back to the last story, 11-year-olds usually don't, run many, many, many miles. No one told me to do it. I just said, this is what I'm gonna do. And I had no knowledge, but I just went, well, running makes you faster. And so I decided to do the absolute hardest thing I could physically imagine. I did it 7 days a week
Yeah.
for like 6 months. And you think about many 11-year-olds that you might know in your life, that's crazy. That doesn't make any sense. Like that's completely insane.
Mm.
Uh, so part of me thinks that I don't know where it came from. I wish I had a really good answer for where it came from, but, like, I just was kinda, like, born that way.
Yes.
For
Yeah, well,
shoes,
it was just part of your DNA, basically.
yeah, exactly. I think there are definitely things that you can get better at. I think a lot of the secrets to improving your, like, sense of determination and discipline and everything has a lot to do with, self-affirmation. It's something that I didn't really learn the science behind it until I was an adult, but I did it a lot as a kid. I used to do this thing, and this is, again, a crazy thing that I did, but I would tell myself every day, and I think I was, like, 17 years old or something like that. And I every day I would get up and in the first thing I would say in the morning, I'd get up and I would look in the mirror, which is just like an actual self-affirmation strategy that I was unaware of. I just did it.
Yeah.
And I said, "You are the greatest athlete on the face of the earth, but you're the only one who knows it yet." And
Amazing.
that was not true. It's
Yeah,
still
but
not
I mean,
true.
it's hard to kind of your muscle memory or your brain memory that you
And that was exactly it. I just told myself that over and over and over and over again until it became true in my mind, and then I used that to guide all my decision making. So, I would just tell myself throughout the day 'cause, throughout the day, you're faced with hundreds of decisions, like, constantly,
Yes,
you're making
always.
decisions all the time, and I would just ask myself, "Okay, well, you're the greatest athlete on the face of the earth. If the greatest athlete on the planet was faced with this decision, what would they do?" And then I would just do whatever this fictional greatest athlete on the planet would do in my head, and then that just made all my decisions for me. So it was like, would the greatest athlete on the planet, like, eat this, like, McDonald's instead of this other meal? The answer was no, so I ate the other meal.
Yeah.
Would they skip their workout? No, so I would go work out. Would they skip their stretching at night? No, so I would go stretch. And it was just that easy for me to just start making those decisions
Mm.
because I'd sort of convinced myself that I was this fictionalized person that I wanted to be,
Mm.
and I think that that is incredibly powerful, and anybody could do that. I don't think because the thing is, it doesn't even need to be true. Like, you create a vision in your mind of what you wanna be, and then you just tell yourself that that's what you are,
Mm.
and eventually you will start treating it as though it is fact.
Yes. So your journey to becoming part of the US bobsled team was definitely not a straight line. So how many other avenues or did you pursue uh, or before you pursued this? And can you share with us more about this? And what ultimately made you switch to bobsled? Where you finally found your passion and your real place in the sports world, which ultimately led to the Olympic bobsled team. So, can you share with us more about that?
So, I just didn't really care how I got there, honestly. Like, the goal with the top of the mountain was go to the Olympics, which I still have not achieved yet, unfortunately. Maybe in 2030, who knows? But I just said, "Okay, well, this is how I'm gonna get there," and there's, like, a million paths that could theoretically get you there, and then I just started climbing, and I went, "I don't care what path I end up on," and so it started off on doing tennis, and I played tennis, and I just committed myself, to that very, very strongly for my most of my adolescence and my youth, my young adult life, and then I got introduced to some Brazilian Olympic track athletes, and I trained with them for about a year, got a great relationship with them, and then during 2016, they were in Brazil doing the Olympics, which was incredible. I was watching them from television, and I was thinking to myself, "Well, that might be maybe I could do that." I mean, I've been training with these guys for a year, like, maybe, and then I called the coach, and I said, "Do you think I could do this?" And he said, I mean, yeah, but that's probably not a good idea. And I went, all right. Then I just jumped into that. And then I did that for 6 years. And then I just, by again, sheer luck, I ended up trying out for the bobsled team and then doing well. But every step up the ladder or like every rung up the ladder was only possible because I threw myself with all of my energy into the last thing that I was doing. So
Yeah.
like during the time that I was a tennis player, I was like, I will succeed as a tennis player, and there were no
Mm,
doubts in my mind.
mm,
And then I saw an opportunity to go closer to my goal, and I went, "Ah, psh," and I just
mm.
moved. And so it was like very willing to make lateral moves that get me closer to the top. But it only works, like, if you're treating it as though, like, "Oh, this is just a stepping stone to get me here, da, 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 da."
Yeah.
You don't commit yourself, and if you don't commit yourself, you won't make the progress. Because like, I wouldn't have been able to run track if I hadn't been out of my mind and being like, "Well, I'm gonna go run with these Olympians to get faster for tennis." Because it was within the framework of getting faster for tennis, and then I just happened to get good at track. And then I built all of the things necessary to be good at bobsled by committing myself fully to track.
Yeah.
And so it was like, I couldn't have made any of those steps without really committing to the previous steps. And
Yeah.
I think that's true for everything in life. Like, you have to, whatever is directly in front of you, you have to do with like every fiber of your being, and then you have no idea what doors are going to open.
Yeah, exactly. So, having, highlighted that point, do you believe that having gone through all those different phases of the many sports chapters you went through, that this gave you an advantage in multiple skills and practices to get you to where you are now?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think that a bobsled is one of those very, especially driving a bobsled, which is what I did, or do, I guess, rather, uh, is one of those things where it's very difficult to tell who's gonna be good and who's
Yeah.
not, because it's unlike driving any other vehicle. Like, there is no other vehicle that drives and operates like a bobsled does. So, we kind of, like, throw a lot of spaghetti at the wall at the US program where, like, people have come in that have been airline pilots, people have come in that have been NASCAR people, race car drivers, like, any kind of background that we can think of that we think maybe that'll translate. And sometimes it does, and sometimes it doesn't, and there doesn't seem to be much of a correlation at all. I think the 2 things that made me good at it when I showed up was my very fast reflexes, dexterity, and ability to think through things and, like, plan stuff out, which I got from tennis. Like, I got all of those things from
Yeah.
tennis. Then a lot of the physical qualities I'd gotten from track. So I kind of, like, married a lot of these mental things that I had gotten from my career in tennis with a lot of these physical things that I had gotten from my career in track, and then it just created a bobsled pilot kind of on accident.
Yeah. No, that's amazing. So with that being said, what would you say some of your biggest lessons have been within your career? And maybe you've got multiple, but is there anything in particular that stands out?
Mm, I that's tough. I would say there's a really common piece of advice that people give out of just don't give up, right? Don't give up, don't
Mm,
give up, don't give up. You hear that all the time, don't give up. And it's true, right?
yeah.
Like, if you give up, you can't succeed at anything, right? And it is inevitable that you will be faced with obstacles and challenges that will stop you, and you have to figure out a way to get past them. And that's where that don't give up mentality really shines. Like, you have to be willing to get stopped and then find a way around that thing.
Yeah.
I think, however, a more valuable piece of advice is start. I
Yes,
think
exactly.
it's so much
There's
easier.
never a right time, right?
Exactly. If you wait until you feel like you're ready, you'll never do anything ever in your life. Like, you'll just stay on your couch in fear forever.
Yeah.
And there is nothing that is ever worthwhile that you could do in your life that you're going to be good at immediately, or that you're going to figure out immediately. And for most people, you're not gonna have resources and money and access and all of these other things that you see the people at the top possess,
Mm,
or, just more privileged people possess. And if you sit there and go, well, I can't start until I get this, or I can't do this until I get this, or like, oh, there's no point in doing this because I don't have this,
mm.
you're going to just inevitably fail. Like, I think you just have to do something. Just do anything. It doesn't really matter. Do whatever you can. And then over time, if you have genuine, earnest intentions behind your journey, you will find people that will help you. and you will be able to move forward and get better at it and to get more resources and to get more access and to do all those things. But you will never be able to convince someone to give you help if you have nothing to like, if you've never done anything, right?
Yes.
You either have to have a boatload of money to hand them to give you a blank shell,
Which
or
for the
you
most
have
part, most
spontaneous
people
knowledge.
don't. Yeah.
Precisely. So at
Mm,
that point, like assuming that you're not like a billionaire's child, right?
mm.
Just do something. Do whatever. It doesn't matter, and accept the fact that it's not going to be that good, and just not don't care because there's nothing that you can do other than start. And I think so many people stay paralyzed by the fear of beginning.
Yes, absolutely. So I want to talk about leadership, as in bobsled, and working with a team. And what would you say made you successful? And what are some of the leadership skills you apply, within the sport, and the work you do, and what you think separates you within your own leadership style?
I think leadership in bobsled is difficult in certain aspects and easy in others. If you get the right team around you, it's pretty easy in terms of managing the people because you're all friends with each other and your lives are on the line together. So you kind of have like a very primal sort of connection with these people, almost like you're going to war or something like that. Because every time you get in the bobsled, your life is genuinely at risk, and you are putting a significant amount of trust into the other person to make sure that you like get down to the bottom. And so it's not that tough to get the right team together, but logistically, it's very tough. Like, bobsled logistics are incredibly difficult because it's kind of on you as the pilot to figure out basically everything
Yeah.
amongst the team, and so coordinating, "Hey, whose responsibility is this? Whose responsibility is this?" "What time are we getting up? What time are we eating breakfast? What time are we leaving?" And then coordinating all of that. That is quite difficult because you have, like a bunch of different people that kind of have their own routines when they're at home, and then you have to like synchronize them and force them to get on one schedule and one calendar, and then make sure all of the work gets done.
Yes.
So that is tough. I think that that's been very helpful to me in business so far because I appreciate the value of having the right team members. I think
Yes.
if you don't have the right people around you, it's just gonna turn into bickering or like this passive aggressive difficulty. And if you get the right people the first time, it's just, hey, go do this thing, and then I trust you.
Yes.
And being able to take your hands away and say, I trust you to do this thing, I think is a underappreciated leadership aspect of, just stepping away and saying, like, you got this. And I think like if you can't do that in bobsled, yeah, you're not getting to the bottom of that mountain.
No. So I'm curious, what was it like for you when you first got into a bobsled? And when did you realize you had the talent and skill? And what was the feeling and experience like or when you first started doing it? Like, was it a
It's not super fun. I mean, it's the first time you get in, usually for most people, you're riding in the on brakes in the back, and it is immensely violent, and it hurts, and it's terrifying, and it's really one of those things where, a lot of people say you don't understand until you've done it, but you really don't get it. Like you think it's gonna be like a roller coaster, or it's gonna be like a water slide, or it's gonna be
Mm.
like all these other things, and it's not like any of that stuff, and, like, the closest thing that I've ever been able to come to kind of describing it would be, like, if you get on one of those rickety old roller coasters or, like, at the boardwalk, and then you take your seatbelt off and just say, "Let's go." And that's very difficult, because even when you're on one of those rickety ones, you're always like, "Oh my god, I don't think the seatbelt's gonna hold," or, like, "This thing's gonna break and I'm gonna die," and you're just very anxious.
Mm.
Um, you kinda have that same feeling, except this thing absolutely could flip over and you could get hurt really bad at
Yes.
any moment,
Yeah.
and then you're also getting rattled around, like, very, very violently, like, you're gonna get down to the bottom, you're gonna be covered with bruises and scrapes, and it's not easy or super fun. In the front of the bobsled, a lot more fun because
Yes.
you can see what's going on, and you're kind of, like, in control of your own destiny. It's still violent and it's still difficult, um, but it's definitely more fun to be in the bag. I don't think I'm very keen on being in the bag. I've gotten to the bag, I've ridden on brakes several times, for different people, but it is not something that I relish doing,
No.
uh, and you kind of figure out really quickly if you're good at it or not. It's one of those things where, again, like, we throw a lot of spaghetti at the wall, and we throw a lot of athletes into the pilot seat to see, like, what they can do, and very fast, like, you can be like, "Oh, this person seems okay at it. This person's very good at it," or "This person's just, like, not built for this in any way, shape, or form." Um, and I didn't really realize that I was as, like, talented at it because the other person, Grady Mercer, that was with me,
Mm,
was a great pilot as well. So he and I were doing about the same, and I was like, "Okay, so this is pretty average." But then later on, after seeing a lot of other people come through the program, we go, "Oh, we were actually pretty good at that." Like, "Oh, man, okay, we were actually better than I thought we were." But we
yeah.
didn't have any frame of reference because you go down and you're like, "It's just me and this guy going down." So you're like, I don't know, like, we didn't crash, it was pretty good." And then you see some other people that are just like, "Bow, bow, bow," into these walls, and you're like, "Oh, okay, actually, we're a lot better than I thought we were."
Yes. Amazing. So with that being said, what would you say some of your biggest sports career highlights have been? And again, you maybe got multiple, but is there any one in particular that stands out for you?
I would say it's kinda tough. I mean, like, highlights are great. I really try to focus on just, like, the overall journey. Like, I think, like, the little moments where I'm just kind of, like, by myself or with some of my teammates that there's not really any big, like, jubilation at the end of it are the things that I relish the most. But I think just, like, I don't know, getting to Olympic trials and being able to participate in Olympic trials is just, like that's something that had been on my bucket list for so long, and then all of a sudden I was there, and I just, like you kinda have to just, like, take it and be like, "Okay," like, "I'm doing something right." Like, maybe, like, if I make it to the Olympics, great. If I don't make it to the Olympics, it is what it is. But I'm
Mm,
like, this is something that people will train their whole life for and not even get anywhere near.
yeah.
So yeah, being able to participate in Olympic trials was a really great honor for me.
Amazing. So I'd like to talk about obviously there's a lot of sacrifice and the reality of what it takes to become an Olympian athlete, or like you say, even just getting to the trials. So I think there is a lot of false perceptions, or that it is a very glamorous as an athlete. So can you share with us the true reality of what it takes and the real story behind the work that goes into it? Because I just think, when people see what they see on TV, but they don't see
Yeah,
necessarily
yeah.
the
You see us for
backstory.
2 weeks every 4 years, and then we just disappear into obscurity again.
Mm,
Um, I think the biggest misconception that people have is that we're getting paid by the government. We are not in any way, shape, or form being paid by the
no.
government.
Mm,
We're not getting these, like, big fat government checks. I mean, I even thought, like, it's kinda naively when I was younger that, I was gonna be staying at the Four Seasons and, they're gonna be flying me first class, and I was gonna be doing all these things. They don't pay for anything, man.
no.
There are a couple, like, stipend athletes, but, like, the stipend you get is barely enough to survive, and it's just enough to kinda, like, stay in the fight, and then maybe you'll be a resident athlete and you'll live there. But a lot of times you give up, I mean, not only your general, like, youth and a lot of, like, the like, socializing and other things that most people do when they're young,
Mm,
but most people end up giving up a lot of their career earning potential. So not only are you sacrificing a large amount of money and a large amount of time from, like, age 18 to, like, 32, 33 on average. Some people stick around for longer, but we'll just use that for average. Uh, but if you are on Team USA, getting a good quality job that's willing to work with your schedule and be flexible with you is like diamonds. Like it is so difficult to get. So most of us end up getting a lot less flexible jobs and we kind of like bounce around from like data entry job to data entry job. And because it's the only thing that you could do remote, and then you're just sort of waiting for the hammer to drop and to get fired. 'Cause you think, "Oh, well, I'm gonna miss our meeting or something's gonna happen," right? And, like, they're gonna can me. And then all of a sudden, you're 32, 33 years old, and you don't really have a robust resume. You haven't been on LinkedIn, you know what I mean? Like being this prolific LinkedIn person, you haven't gotten any real good promotions, and you've been mostly entry level, or like maybe like a small team managerial level, but probably not because you're traveling so much that they're very hesitant to put them in like managerial roles. And then all of your peers who are the same age as you have had 10, 12, 15 years of resume building,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden you're thrown into the corporate world or just like reality, and then it's very difficult to land a job because you might be the world's greatest, I don't know, skier or something, whatever it is.
Mm.
But there you go to work at a company and they're like, dude, we like sell, bottled water here, like I don't care how good you are at skiing, it's irrelevant to the job. And so you end up having these great like soft skills and these other things. But it doesn't get you as far. So that's probably like the biggest sacrifice because then at that point you're 33 and your earning potential, like these other people will be getting promoted, making more money, doing all these other things, and they're on this trajectory in their life. And then you're starting from the bottom in the
Mm.
30s
Yeah,
and
it's
it's
hard.
compounding. Yeah, it
Yeah.
compounds on you and it's very, very difficult.
Yeah. So obviously that led you, I wanted to obviously talk about what led you to start the American Paragon Foundation, and what is the reality for athletes when they retire from the sports and or Olympics, and why is it so important to create this foundation to assist and help athletes?
Yeah, so I started this just because I was kind of noticing some gaps. Like I've spent a lot of time with a lot of different athletes from a lot of different sports. I live in San Diego, so there's a big sort of like Olympic like mentality here, right? Because we have the Chula Vista Center, and it's like a lot of people live here just for the weather to be able to train all year. And then I spent a lot of time in Lake Placid, so I met a lot of different athletes, and you just start noticing these patterns over time,
Mm.
where it's like, okay, not everybody's the exact same, but you can see like generalities where it's like, oh, this person's struggling in this way, and this person's struggling in this way, and they're very similar. And then this person's also struggling in a very similar way. And then this person's also struggling. And like all of a sudden you've met like 50 people that are all kind of got like a really similar story to one another. And I was like, okay, well, something needs to change. Like this is not sustainable and it's not good for the athletes. And so I decided, like, I'll just do it myself. I'm gonna just go make a foundation. I'm gonna start helping these athletes. And so we started running these programs to try and get athletes better jobs. That's kind of how it started, was with the job placement. And then we went into entrepreneurial mentorship. Then we went to keynote speaking training,
Amazing.
and which is incredible. Then we went to like this thing I call like Team USA Airbnb, which is like short-term housing that we're able to provide to the athletes. And then I run events and we get athletes booked on podcasts and we do all these other things. And we run these programs specifically to try and fill the gaps of the support that these athletes very specifically need. Because they're not getting these like multi-million dollar contracts or anything like that. These are people that are living like relatively normal quote unquote lives, but they're also like moonlighting as like the best athlete on the planet, right?
Yeah,
And
it's kind of polar opposite, right?
it is, yeah, and you're trying to live 2 concurrent lives, and it's very, very difficult without some support because you end up having to do all these things, which are basically like full-time jobs all at the same time, and it's just too much to ask of these athletes, and I think it's not right that an athlete could get, sort of like beaten down through attrition and
Mm.
dropped out of their Olympic path and their Olympic dreams because of something outside of the sport, right?
Yeah.
Like, they weren't able to figure out the job placement stuff. They weren't able to start their own business to get self-sustaining for the money. They were able to get famous enough to go get the sponsors. Like, those are things that shouldn't necessarily really be your responsibility in the
Mm.
first place,
Mm.
but they fall onto you as your responsibility. And so I said, I'm gonna come out and I'm gonna help all the athletes and try to, like, shore that up and make it so that, you have some support and you have some help, and ideally those things are not the things that stop them from being successful. And that's really what we're doing. And we use the support of the community. So I mean, like I'm on LinkedIn all the time. You find me on LinkedIn, you can message me, you can do whatever.
Mm.
And like the housing, it's just people volunteering to put their houses on the website, and to potentially have a Team USA athlete stay there if they're there for a competition. For the entrepreneurial mentorship, it's real entrepreneurs, people that have been successful in their life and started businesses that are willing to get matched with an athlete and sort of like help them and teach them about what they've learned and the lessons and those things. For the housing, or sorry, not the housing, for the job placement, it's people that say that hear something like this podcast to say, "Well, I'm hiring. I would hire one of those guys," and then
Yeah.
they go and post it. So it's really grassroots of these people coming together and supporting these athletes, which is just like I don't know, it's a beautiful sort of like patriotic thing to come together like that.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. So that leads me to the final question. Um, so what are the three key pieces of advice you would give to those looking to pursue a similar career or just start their own entrepreneurial journey? And what legacy would you like to leave, or how would you like to be remembered?
Man, three pieces of advice. The first one is start. Like, calling back to that question earlier, just start. Like, don't worry about being good at it. Don't worry about being perfect at it. Don't worry about any of that stuff. Just do something. Uh, Number two is have some kind of plan. Like, you have to break things down into short term, medium term, and long term goals, and then it's obviously important to be willing to change those plans as circumstances arise. But having some kind of plan and having some kind of vision for what you're trying to make happen is the only thing that's going to really spur you into the action, right? Like if you know that, hey, from 6 months from now, I need this thing to be done, that means next week you need to start doing it, right? Or today you need to start doing it, right?
Yes.
It's impossible to start a business or do any of those things if you only think in like that 20,000 foot view, because at the end of the day, stuff needs to get done, right? So it's not gonna happen. That's the same thing. It can feel very overwhelming as well to think of it as only the 30,000 foot view or the 20,000 foot view, because you start thinking about, oh, well, if I want to have this company that sells X product, well, then I need this website and I need the marketing team and I need the budget and I need the legal and I need the tax and I need all those other things. And then all of a sudden you get paralyzed because you go, oh, I don't have those things. And I don't know how I'm going to do it. And that's, might as well not try. Just start selling something and be like, I'll figure it out as I go. Cause that's how almost everybody that was successful managed to do it, is they just started and then figured it out.
Yeah.
Um, and then the third piece of advice would be have pure intentions. I think people that are incredibly like money motivated are very easy to sniff out, and others are not very willing to support them,
Yeah.
uh, because you're going to start out and you're going to need help. Guaranteed, you're gonna need help. Like
100%.
unless you're a billionaire's kid, you're gonna need some, and even then, you're gonna need some help.
Yeah.
And getting some people who have been there and have done that, or like have good guidance, or are willing to take time out of their day and their schedules
Mm.
to make you successful, you have to be pure and earnest in what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
If you're just saying, "I'm just gonna go make a bunch of money, I'm gonna do X, Y, Z," uh, I don't know. Like, I don't see it working out long term, because it's very difficult to get people to want to help you and support you if your only goal at the end of the day is to make a bunch of money.
Yeah.
Um, for the second part of that question with the legacy, I wanna plant a tree in the shade of which I'll never sit. And by that I mean, I will almost definitely be completely retired from sports by the time that this vision of mine becomes a fully functioning, incredible, like, reality where, like, no Team USA athlete has to worry about these things, like, ever again. Now, like, by the time we have an international housing network and all these other things, and, like, this huge thing with all this money and all these programs and the events that they're running, I will most likely never benefit from that, but I don't care. I wanna be remembered as the person who helped all those other people. Like, I wanted, to make a world where other athletes that come in and are seeking to self-actualize and to make themselves the best version of themselves that they can possibly be,
Mm.
can go and do that, and not have to struggle quite in the same way that I have struggled, and, like, to not be pushed aside because of completely random side reasons rather than, like, hey, if you are trying to be the world's greatest bobsledder and you just don't have it what it takes to be the world's greatest bobsledder, at least you tried, right?
Yeah.
But if you go to sleep at night thinking maybe I could have been the world's greatest bobsledder, but I couldn't figure out social media,
Mm,
that's unacceptable. Like
yeah.
that's I'm not gonna let that happen. And that's kind of how I want to be remembered. I want to have that impact on the community.
Amazing. Well, thanks so much, Shane, for joining us today. And if people would like to connect with you, what are the best platforms to do so?
LinkedIn,
Okay.
Shane Fisher, I think it's Shane Fisher USA on LinkedIn. I'm out there posting stuff all the time, doing a lot on LinkedIn. And then you could just email me at shane@americanparagons.org. I'm a big ideas guy, so if you have any idea, if I'm not already doing it, I want to hear it because I love doing any creative thing that I can that gives the Team USA athletes a leg up.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much. And hopefully we can have you back in the future for, to see where you are on your journey. So thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much. I look forward to coming back.